When I was younger, I used to visit an auntie and uncle of mine every Sunday, probably started around the age of 13. We talked football. I was a keen Newcastle United supporter in those days, and just general family updates. Anyway, it all started early one summer after I turned 15. As was usual on a Sunday, I left my parents' home that was just behind a large pub on Newcastle's West Road, walking down the hill to my aunt's house in the Benwell area of the city. Arriving at my aunt's as usual and mid-afternoon, following a second Sunday lunch, I was still a growing lad, but never seemed to put on any weight. She asked if I wouldn't mind sizing some clothes she was altering. Without thinking about it, I said yes. She disappeared for a couple of minutes and returned with a skirt and dress. The skirt she just held against my waist and added a couple of pins, but the dress she said I'd need to try on. Not wanting to back out, I said okay, and she had me step into the dress whilst I was still wearing my t-shirt and jeans. Again, she added a couple of pins and took it off me. Nothing more was said. The football season was over as I headed to see her the following weekend. Second lunch duly eaten, she again asked for help, so once again I agreed, but this time as I stepped into it, it was very clear it was now tighter and my jeans were causing it to pull and basically not fall correctly. So she asked me to just pull my jeans down. At this point my Uncle Derek put down his paper and gave Aunt Margaret a somewhat quizzical look, but remained silent. Once again I agreed to her request. More pins were added and I pulled my jeans back up and I was out the dress. The following week, my parents were going on holiday with my two brothers, and being 15 and all grown up, I'd opted not to go. They left one Thursday morning if I recall correctly, and I thought I'd just pay a visit to my aunt, mainly because I was planning a teenagers party with some friends from school for the weekend. When I got there, she was delighted to see me and wasted no time in asking for help with the dress again, so I just said okay. As she went to zip it up, it was so obvious that once again the jeans and this time my shirt were going to stop the dress fitting as it should. So she asked if I minded taking them off and maybe putting on something else that would help the dress lie correctly. So I stripped down to my briefs and stood waiting to see what she would ask me to wear. She returned with what I now know was an open-bottomed 4-strap latex long girdle. She got me to step into it and pulled it up over my body, finally slipping the straps over my shoulders. I wasn't a big boy, but it was definitely a snug fit even with my then 26-inch waist. Once it was on and covered everything, she asked me to swap my briefs for a pair of matching white panties. I remember thinking this is a bit odd, but when she had me step into the dress and she zipped it up, I had to admit that it did look right, or it would if I had a bust. I must have said something about that because she suggested a bit padding and undid the dress and patted out the girdle, bra cups. Now I'd always had long hair, being a heavy metal and prog rock fan, but the next thing my auntie said took me by surprise. You see, she said, you know, with a bit curl in your hair and some makeup you would be the exact image of your mom. Shall we try it? Before I could really respond, I was sat in front of her dresser, the dress removed, and she began putting giant rollers into my hair. I was a bit dumbfounded, but simultaneously excited to see this transformation. I was turned away from the mirror and she began applying makeup, a cream first then powder before applying blue eyeshadow and the deepest red lipstick I'd ever seen. Finally she took out the rollers and began brushing and combing my hair. I tried to catch a look in the mirror, but she quickly turned my head back. Not yet, she said. Once she finished, she stood back admiring her work and said, no looking, let's get you dressed again, but first you'll need to put these on, and she produced a pair of sheer aristocracy stockings. Of course back then all stockings were fully fashioned. Having her slide them up my leg and clip the suspenders was, at that time, the single most erotic and sexy act I'd ever indulged in. Luckily I never really had hairy legs, and at 15 they were as smooth as any girl's. She got me to step into the dress and proceeded to zip up the back. I'm not sure if at the time I really appreciated how it felt, and I didn't have time to fully take it all in. She went to her wardrobe and produced a pair of white-heeled stiletto shoes, and at the time being a reasonable size 6 they fitted me perfectly. I didn't have an issue standing in the heels, and when she turned me round to see myself in the mirror, I looked fab. I could see my mum in me, and I could easily have been a younger sister. As my aunt got me to walk around the room a bit, suddenly the clock chimed. It was 4:30 p.m. and my uncle would be home from work very soon. My aunt panicked a little, but instead of getting me out the dress, dragged me to the kitchen and told me I'd have to help her prepare dinner. I was bit rabbit in the headlights and found myself peeling some potatoes whilst Auntie prepared some mince and onions. Funny how details like that stay with you. Anyway, we were both in the kitchen when the door opened and my uncle returned. I remember for the first time a wave of panic came over me. What would he say, and maybe more importantly, what would he do? He came up the stairs, looked into the kitchen, said something like, "You both okay? Is dinner almost ready? I need to clean up," and walked straight past. My aunt burst out laughing, and for no real reason I joined in. A few minutes later he was seated at the table and my aunt and I brought in the dinner. Once it was all placed, he looked me straight in the eye and said, "And just who might you be?" I started to speak, but nothing was coming out, and that's when my auntie announced my name to the world. "This is Joanna, she's been helping me today." My uncle gave a slight nod, and that was it. Nothing else was said and no questioning. As he got up to leave the table, he turned to my aunt and reminded her they were going out dancing that evening. He made a point of saying, "I'll change my clothes and you," taking us both in with a glance, "will need to get changed too." Aunt and I washed the dishes and she took me into the spare bedroom where all this had taken place. My aunt left me there and closed the door behind her as she headed to her main bedroom. I could hear my uncle's voice being raised. I'd never heard him raise his voice before, but with a wall and 2 doors between us I couldn't really hear what was being said. A couple of minutes later my aunt returned carrying a deep red dress. I was about to ask if everything was okay when she said, "You know, you really do look like our Allison, my mum. It's actually quite nice to have her around again, even your uncle agrees." "It didn't sound like it," I said. "Oh, don't worry, he'll get used to it." "Well, he might, but I won't. I need to get out of this outfit," I thought as my auntie began to get changed into her posh frock. Watching her get changed was so sexy. She was also wearing a girdle, a pale dusky cream color, and also wearing stockings. She sat herself down and proceeded to do her makeup. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed, fidgeting and wondering when can I get undressed. After what felt like an age my aunt stood up and reached for a coat, but then passed it to me and said, "Come on, let's retouch your makeup and get you ready to leave." I went fully into shock mode. "I can't, I won't, I'll tell Mum." And before I could say anything else my uncle called, "The taxi is almost here, are you two ready?" Aunt quickly applied more lipstick, pulled my arms into the coat sleeves, passed me a small handbag and pulled me towards the door. In a matter of seconds I was heading down the stairs, the front door already open as my uncle left for the taxi, and with a gentle push from my auntie, Joanna was out there in the full glare of the outdoor spaces and I was being led to the taxi. "Don't worry, Joanna," my uncle said, "we'll drop you off first." "Check your purse for the key," came from my auntie, and there I was, sat in the back seat of a taxi, all made up and dressed in a tightly fitted pencil dress, way too old for a 15-year-old in retrospect, stockings and heels. My house keys and I later discovered eyeshadow, lipstick and a small bottle of perfume, all in the small purse/bag that had been thrust into my hands. The taxi didn't actually stop in front of my house, while my parents' house. "We don't want to draw any attention, do we?" as my auntie gave me the most conspiratorial smile. So had a short walk to navigate, maybe only 100 yards, probably less, but to me it felt like I was outside dressed as a woman. The clothes were wrong for a girl of my age, and had what felt like a marathon distance to walk. Waking as fast as the unfamiliar heels would allow, I got to the house door, turned the key, and I remember leaning back against the closed door breathing a sigh of relief. When I looked up, at the end of our hallway there used to be a full-length mirror. There stood this attractive, well-dressed young woman. I stood there, my back pressed against the front door, just staring at my reflection. I don't know how long I'd been standing there, but my trance was rudely broken by the ringing of the front doorbell. I quietly swore to myself, who the hell is this, and then panicking, had I been spotted. John, called a voice, I know you're in there. Damn, it was Christopher, a neighbor's slightly older son. Then I remembered Mrs. Walton, a family friend who lived just a few doors away, had been asked to look out for me while my mom and dad were away. I carefully stood back from the door and opened it just a touch. What do you want, Chris? Mom sent me over to see if you're okay. She thought you brought a girl home. No, it's just me. I'm about to grab a bath. See you tomorrow. I went to close the door only for it to jam on his foot. Mom's coming over now, he said. Panicking, I opened the door fully. You've got to stop her, I pleaded. He turned quickly and started walking towards his mom. I heard him say, It's okay, John's just taking a bath. There's no one else there. I shut the door. My heart was beating faster than humanly possible. I stood in front of the mirror, in some sort of delayed shock. The realization Chris had seen me fought its way to the front of my thoughts, and I began to shake with nervous tension. Before I could gather myself, the door rang again. Who is? I softly called. It's just me. Chris was back. I've got this album by a band you might like, let me in. Fearful of what he might do if I didn't, I opened the door. He walked quickly past me without even looking at me. Make me a cuppa and I'll put the album on, he called over his shoulder. In an odd coincidence, the album was Queen's debut release. I followed Chris and turned into our kitchen to make us both a cup of tea. It was then my brain kicked into gear and I called out, What the hell are you doing back here, Chris? Just thought you might like this album, came a voice from the living room. I walked in, cups in hand. And you do look kinda cute, he said. Sod off, was my reply. So come on, how did you end up looking so cute in a dress? All my aunt's doing, was my reply, and you can stop gawping at my legs. Help me get this zip undone. I need to get out of these clothes. Not just yet, listen to the album first. Why, what do you think is going to happen? Well, you might like it, Chris paused and added, the album that is, with a big smile on his face. Creep, as I sat down on the sofa and kicked off the stilettos. Chris walked over to the hi-fi and placed this album he wanted me to hear on the turntable. Out came the opening chords to Keep Yourself Alive as Chris came and sat on the sofa next to me. Don't try anything, creep. Chris smiled. So what do you think? I could get used to it. It's okay, I knew it. What about the song though? Oh, very funny, you creep. No, seriously, what you think so far? As second track Doing Alright started. To be honest, Chris, I don't think I like the guy's voice. Who is it anyway? They're called Queen. This is their first album. Barely halfway through side 1 and I decided it's crap, Chris. The album's crap. Keeping me in a dress is crap. You should go. Listen to side 2 at least before I go. Nah, I've heard enough and I'm done with sitting here while you stare at my legs. Just go. Chris stood and went to take off the record. Putting it back in the sleeve, he gave me a look over. Pity you're not enjoying the experience. You do make a cute girl. Oh, sod off, Chris. I stood and motioned Chris to leave. He tucked the album and headed to the front door. I stood back a little, not wanting anyone else to catch a glimpse. Chris opened the door and threw it wide open. Anyone out there had a clear view into our hall. I pushed past him and put my hand to close the door. You want me to stay? Stop playing around, Chris. This isn't funny. Just take your album and go. Not without a goodbye kiss. Get lost, Chris. I'm not gay. You clearly are, queer. It's not gay when you look so lovely. Jesus, Chris, just go, will you? Where's my kiss? I'm not kissing you now, piss off. I might have to tell my mom, you're not feeling well, or you've got a girl over after all. That's why I'm back so soon. I'm sure she'll be over to check on you. Chris smiled, thinking he had me. Yeah, well, if she comes over, I tell her you tried to kiss me. Like she believed that. All she'll see is a cute girl in a dress. No signs of John here. How you going to explain it? Either way, she'll think you've got a girl here or... He left is hanging there. Geez, Chris, you really are a creep. I'm still waiting for my kiss. Not being in control of the situation, I kissed Chris on the cheek now sawed off. That's not a kiss. And Chris made a grab for me. I'd gotten too close to him and kissing his cheek. He grabbed my head and pulled it close, and the sod kissed me on the lips. I instantly threw a punch at him, but missed and crashed my fist into the door. He jumped away and called back smiling. I don't even know your name. Piss off. And I shut the door as fast as I could, ran up to my bedroom and tried to get out of these clothes. It wasn't easy. Finding the zip on the back of the dress seemed to take an eternity, but finally I could get my arms out the dress and let it fall to the floor. I unclipped the stockings and pulled off the Playtex girdle and finally stepped out of the panties. I hurried along to the bathroom and began vigorously scrubbing my face, getting every trace of Joanna washed from me. Pulling on a t-shirt and jeans, I went back downstairs and placed Black Sabbath Volume 4 on, much more my taste in music at the time. Finding the headphones, I whacked up the volume. Looking across at the discarded stilettos, I said to myself, those shoes and clothes are going back to Aunt Margaret's first thing tomorrow morning, and definitely before anyone has any chance of finding the clothes here, reminding myself there was to be a school friend's party here on Saturday night. Friday morning I woke late to the doorbell ringing. Pulling on a t-shirt, I went to answer the door, and there stood Mrs. Walton, the friendly neighbor. Are you okay, John? Can I come in? As she moved past me into the hall. I'm fine. Can I get you a cup of tea? I said, steering her to the kitchen, desperately trying to remember if I'd picked up the stilettos from last night. No thank you, just our Chris came home quite early last night. I was worried you might be unwell. Which I'm pretty sure was her way of saying, have you been drinking? Anyway, I explained I'd been down to my aunt's and Chris turned up just as I returned, so I was feeling tired and wanted to get an early night. Really, she said, that's funny, I'm sure I saw the lights on late into the evening. I laughed nervously. Oh, I must have forgot to turn them off. Don't tell my dad. Well, be more careful, she said and turned to leave. As we stood in the hall, I was looking over her shoulder into the living room. Sure enough, there were the stilettos. I could feel the panic begin to rise. If she turns round, she'll see them. My mind was racing. She's got to leave. I need to get this resolved. Then a gentle knock at the door. It was Chris. Hey, Mum, Dad's on the phone for you. As she turned to leave, she said quietly, you best tidy up. Doesn't do to leave shoes and clothes around. My eyes went wide. F***K, she'd seen the shoes. I took a deep breath, but before I could say anything she was gone, taking Chris with her. I dashed into the living room and picked up the shoes. How could I be so stupid to leave them lying around? I took them up to my bedroom and bundled the clothes, shoes and purse into a rucksack, ready to cycle down to my aunt's and return this unwanted clothing. It was almost lunchtime and I was about to head out when there came another ringing of the doorbell. Opening the door, there was Aunt Margaret. She gave my hair a ruffle and walked past me into the kitchen. Couldn't help but think, people just walking past me as if I wasn't there was becoming a bit of a thing over the past 24 hours. She stood at the cooker, placing a kettle on the hob. Without looking back at me, she said, well, I see you managed to get changed. Yes, though reaching the zip wasn't easy. She turned to me, a big smile on her face. I'm sorry about yesterday. I shouldn't have let you come home all dressed up. Still, though, you survived and you did look cute. She opened her arms for a hug, but I just lost it. Survived it? I almost got caught by our neighbor. Chris, her son, saw me dressed and the sod tried to kiss me. Now he probably thinks I'm queer or worse. My aunt moved closer, put her arms around me and hugged me despite my struggling. It's all right. I doubt Chris will say anything. It's not as if you're going to put on a dress for him, are you? Well, no. My aunt stood back a little. You don't sound too sure. Getting all indignant again, I muttered, I'm not dressing up like that again. You'll need to find someone else to be your dressmaker's mannequin. Oh, don't be like that. You looked lovely as a girl. Let's face it, John, you're not a big muscular boy. In fact, you looked a lot better as a girl than you do now, all angry and bothered. Come on, I'll make it up to you. Let's go to town. My treat. You can even come in your jeans and t-shirt, she was almost laughing. I don't want to go to town, I said somewhat petulantly. Oh, come on, there must be some album or something you want. Well, there's this new American band, I wouldn't mind listening to. Okay, she said, get your coat and let's go. I reached for my Levi jacket, pulled it over my t-shirt and headed out with my aunt. Jumping on the number 38 bus into Newcastle, we got off at the bottom of the West Road. Across from the bus stop was the record store Oz Records. I walked up to the counter and asked if they had a copy of the New York Dolls' self-titled debut. They did, and I motioned that my aunt was going to pay as I went off to browse some other albums. Aunt paid for the album, which was the princely sum of £2.99, it being an import. Once outside I was all for heading home, but Aunt had other ideas. First, a bit of lunch at Mark Tony's. While we were there she asked to log at the album. I passed the bag over. As she looked and read the sleeve notes, she leaned forward, a bit conspiratorially. You like this band, they're new, I said. Well, they don't seem to mind dressing up and putting on a bit makeup, she said, the biggest smile ever on her face. I reached for the album and groaned inwardly, oh God, they're wearing frocks. Sandwich and tea over, Aunt wanted to do a bit shopping before heading back, so I dutifully tagged along. Walking through the Victorian Granger Market, Aunt was buying the food for Sunday lunch. Our last store of the day was Fenwick's on Northumberland Street, one of the largest stores in the town. Aunt instantly headed for the lingerie section on the third floor. I walked a good few feet behind her. Although I was just 15, a woman's lingerie section was just a bit too much for me. So many colors, so much lace, so many styles, frankly it was all a bit overwhelming. Aunt Margaret was looking at a deep red corset. I'd only seen something like this on the pages of Playboy magazine. She turned to me, do you like this? Yes, it's nice, very sexy. She covered the few feet between us, and whispered, you'd look so amazing in this, and off she went to look at more lacy bras, still holding the corset. I stood there in shock, but with a mental picture of a Playboy centerfold, only it wasn't some anonymous blonde or brunette. It was me. I turned and caught up with her. All I could manage was, I can't wear that, Mom would kill me. Here I was, a 5 feet 6 inches boy, with my high-heeled aunt, imagining myself in a tightly laced corset. I shook the thoughts and image out of my head. This is going too far, it's not normal. By the time I'd regained some composure, we were amongst the stockings, Aristoc fully fashioned and seamed stockings as far as the eye could see. Before I knew it, my aunt was striding purposefully to the cashier, corset and stockings in hand. Was she buying them for me? We headed off to the bus to catch the ride back up the West Road, and holding a Fenwick's bag containing the boxed and discreetly packaged red corset and at least 4 pairs of stockings. We both got off the stop nearest my home. You can make me a cup of tea before I go, she said. I headed to the kitchen and put the kettle on. We drank in silence, and when finished my aunt stood and simply said, will you be coming down on Sunday? Yes, I replied, and with that she left, taking the packaged corset and stockings with her. I went and sat on the sofa, all thoughts of playing the album gone. Why was I disappointed she'd taken the corset away? Did I really want to try it on? What was wrong with me? That corset belongs on some gorgeous woman, not some 15-year-old boy. Wonder what I'd look like. I couldn't shake these, very definitely, unwanted thoughts. Then I remembered, in my room was a rucksack containing the clothes I'd been wearing less than 24 hours earlier. What's the harm in putting them on? What's the harm in wearing the girdle and stockings? I mean, they did feel nice, didn't they? I was halfway up the stairs before I stopped myself. Get a grip, I'm no pervert and I'm definitely not a girl. Those clothes have to go. I went back downstairs, pulled out the album and put it on. Personality crisis quickly followed by looking for a kiss. I listened to the whole album, ending with Jet Boy. I found myself quietly laughing to myself, while that was a narrow escape, in more ways than one. I'm glad I didn't shell out my limited cash for the album, and equally glad I'm not now laced into that red corset. The New York dolls stink and I'm all boy. I'll take the rucksack of clothes back to Aunt Margaret on Sunday. Saturday morning came round and I managed to drag myself out of bed a little before 10 a.m. No sooner had I sat down to my cornflakes, there was a knock at the door. Pulled the dressing gown tightly around me. I answered only to find Mrs. Walton there. "Morning, John, can I come in?" I nodded and she came into the kitchen. She looked long and hard at me, in silence. Eventually I said, "Is something wrong?" To which she replied, "You tell me." I shrugged my shoulders. Then she dropped the bombshell. "Our Christopher told me you were wearing a dress and heels, in fact all dressed up like a young woman when he came over on Thursday. Care to explain yourself?" I stammered, unsure what to say. No words came out. There's no use thinking of a way to deny it. I saw the high heels in the living room. "You best tell me why you were dressed like that. I'll need to be able to explain it to your mom." "No, please don't tell Mum. I'll tell you and I'll do as you say." So I recounted the story of how my aunt had me try on a dress just for sizing and how it led to me coming home all dressed up. I finished my story and she sat there, very quiet, which was a wee bit scary to be honest. After what seemed a lifetime she finally spoke again. "Do you still have the clothes here?" I nodded. "Good," she said. "I want to see you in them. I'll come back to see you around 2 p.m. this afternoon. Make sure you're all dressed, just as your aunt dressed you." "I can't do that. I'm not a girl. I won't do that." "Oh, I think you will," she said. "I can spin quite a tale for your parents when they return if you don't do as I say." The threat was obvious. She turned to leave. "Make sure you're ready by 2 p.m., and don't let me down. I expect you to be well turned out." I shut the door, leant back against it and burst into tears. What shall I do? This is out of control. I'm not a girl. She wouldn't tell my mom. Anyway, she wouldn't believe her, would she? I cried and cried, maybe for 30 minutes or so. When the sobbing stopped, I knew I'd have to dress in the clothes and let Mrs. Walton see me. I trudged back up to my room and threw myself down on the bed. The crying started again. I looked at my clock. It was 12 noon. I looked in my mirror. My eyes were red and teary. Pulling myself together, I knew I'd just have to get this over with. Dejectedly, I made my way to the bathroom, ran myself a hot bath, and on the spur of the moment added some of my mom's scented bath oil. The warmth of the water and the aroma helped me calm down, and when I climbed out the bath, I was resigned to my fate for the afternoon and went to dry myself and get dressed. Putting the girdle on and attaching the stockings was easy. Zipping up the dress took a few goes. Finally, I slipped my feet into the stilettos. Tentatively, I looked at my reflection. John was gone, or at least disappearing. There was this young woman staring back at me. Then I thought I need some lipstick, so I went to my mom's bedroom and in her dresser drawer found some soft pink lipstick and blue eyeshadow. I had no idea how to apply foundation or blusher or anything else, so lipstick and eyeshadow would be the limit of my makeup. Finally finished with my attempts, I looked to the clock. It was only 1:30. I had 30 minutes to wait. Possibly the longest 30 minutes of my short life, but dead on 2 p.m. came the dreaded knock on the door. I ran my fingers through my hair, in a last-minute attempt to at least look reasonable, thinking to myself, if you're going to do this, at least be confident. I walked down the stairs, headed to the door, and opened it wide. I was shocked to see Chris standing there. "Mum sent me to get you," was all he said. The veneer of confidence drained from me, and I quite literally began to shake. "Get your keys." I went back up to my room, grabbed my keys. Then, in something of a daze, I found myself putting them into the bag my aunt had made me carry, and the thought entered my head, "You'll need your jacket if you're going out." I was halfway down the stairs before I stopped. "I can't go out, Chris. What if more neighbors see me?" "Mom's adamant that you have to come to ours. Why can't she come here?" Chris moved closer to me, grabbed my arm and made me link him. "The sooner we head out, the sooner you'll be back indoors." 3 lengthy strides later, I was outside, on Chris's arm, heading down the street, crossing it and standing outside Mrs. Walton's front door. In my head, every person in the dozen or so houses we passed was at their window wondering who the girl on Chris's arm was. Then the door opened and we were ushered inside. We were led into the front room. Mrs. Walton motioned that we should sit. Chris sat next to me on the sofa, Mrs. Walton opposite. Well, Chris was right, you do look attractive, what should we call you? Joanna, I mumbled, speak up girl, no one is going to hurt you here. Joanna, I said again. Kai's thinks I'm attractive popped into my head, why do I keep getting these thoughts, so I missed what Mrs. Walton was saying as I struggled to keep myself focused. I took in my surroundings, just in time to hear Mrs. Walton say so that's all agreed then as she looked to me. I nodded, it seemed to be what she was expecting. I want to hear you say it, not really sure what I was agreeing to. I said, I'll do as you say Mrs. Walton. Good, I'll leave Chris to give the details and times, you can head home if you want or you and Chris can talk here if you want. I'd rather go home if that's all right. Yes, that's all right. Chris will walk you back. I was about to protest I didn't need to be walked back but thought just do as she wants. Chris stated and extended his hand, I took it and he led me out and back home. As we got closer to my door Chris said thanks for doing this. I looked up at him, doing what I was bit dazed in there. I don't really remember what was being said. I think we'd best go inside, said Chris. I fumbled with my purse and managed to miss the keyhole and drop the keys. Chris bent down to retrieve them and opened the door. I followed him inside. Were you not listening to my mom? I told you Chris, it all is a bit of a blur, I mean sitting in your mom's living room in a dress and stockings. It's all bit surreal. What have I agreed to? You best sit down for this, just tell me Chris, this isn't fun for me you know. Will you agree to go shopping with my mom on Wednesday, then on Friday, you and I are going to my leaving party before I head to university? What? Don't panic, there won't be many there and I doubt you'll know anyone. But why Chris, why do I have to go with you to a party? Geez, you really weren't listening, you know I go to an all-boys school, just like you. Well, Mom doesn't want any of my friends to think I can't get a girl, though truthfully I barely know any. Once she saw you it made her decide on this plan that you accompany me. Chris, I'm not even 16 yet, I can't be your date. It's not a date, he said quickly, you're just accompanying me so I don't look like a lonely loser. Has she thought, what if someone realizes I'm not a girl? Once she saw you, she knew you could be a girl for the duration of the party. And do you want to do this, Chris? Well, you are kinda cute and no one will ever know. I will, you will, and probably half the street will if you do this, John. I'll owe you big time. I lapsed into silence, slowly becoming aware Chris was sitting next to me with his arm around my shoulders. I pushed him away. Don't go getting any ideas. Chris stood and went to leave. I'll see you later. I heard the door close. I tried to stand but couldn't as I began to shake again, and before I knew it, I was crying again. Looking at the clock, it was well after 5 p.m. I had to pull myself as some friends from school were coming round for a few illicit beers. I went to go up to my room and as I passed the full-length mirror in the hall I just said to myself, well, I can't let them see me like this. I managed to get out the clothes, take a quick shower and pull on a t-shirt and jeans when the doorbell went once again. The first of my small group of friends arrived carrying beers and a bottle of vodka. Pretty soon the 6 of us were sitting around listening to some Lindisfarne and Genesis albums when the talk turned round to girls. None of us knew any outside of our immediate families, the joys of attending all-boys school. There just wasn't anything to do but just drink, and we were all drinking too quickly. It wasn't long after 9 p.m. when the first arguments started. I can't even remember what it was about now, but one of my friends, I think it was one of the Stevens, said we wouldn't be arguing if there were some girls here. Pretty quickly everyone joined in bemoaning the fact we didn't know any. It was then that Jeremy said, so who would make the best girl from out of us? Both Stevens turned to me, quickly followed by the rest of the group. Hey, I might not be the tallest but I'm as much of a guy as any of you. Which led to the second disagreement of the night, this time ending in a fight between myself and my friend Paul. Suddenly the doorbell rang and one of the Stevens drunkenly went to open it. In strode Mrs. Walton, all fire and fury. She pulled Paul off me. I was easily coming off second best and ordered them all out the house. They all left pretty sheepishly. I was left with Mrs. Walton. That's no way for a young girl to behave. Go get yourself cleaned up and drink some water before you go to bed. As she left I muttered under my breath, I'm not a girl, young or otherwise, I'm ending this and getting rid go the clothes. Sunday morning I awoke with my very first hangover. I thought I was dying, but I was still resolved to end this. It was almost 1 p.m. by the time I got my act together. I decided to walk down to my aunt's, not feeling up to the cycle ride. I stuffed the clothes into a bag and stared the arc down to Aunt's house. Luckily from Fenham to Benwell is all downhill, so I made it in decent time, getting there around 2 p.m. When I got there my aunt was alone. "Where's Uncle?" I asked. "Oh, he's starting a course early tomorrow in Manchester, so had to leave today." "What's in the bag?" "It's your clothes." "Definitely put the emphasis on your. Don't you want to keep them? I thought you liked wearing them." "I'm not a girl, Auntie." "Well, no, but you do look cute anyway. These clothes are too old for me. Girls my age don't wear clothes like this." "You're right. Girls like you all seem to wear much shorter skirts these days." My aunt laughed at "not girls like me." "Auntie, I'm not a girl." My head was throbbing, and I was thinking I really don't need this. "What if I put you in a mini skirt? Then you'd be a girl like you." She was smiling. "Do I have to?" "My head is killing me. You know what? Why don't you go have a hot bath? I'll make something to eat. You might feel better after." "I'll go run it." With hat my aunt went to her bathroom and I could hear the bath running. She came back with a fizzy liquid. "Take this, it will help with you hangover." There's that smile again. I knocked it back. "Go ahead, have that bath." So off I went, stripping off my jeans and t-shirt and climbing into the bath, barely noticing the bubbles and delicate floral scent. A couple of minutes my aunt knocked at the door and came in. I'd forgot to lock it. She picked up my clothes and said food will be ready in 30 minutes. I mumbled under my breath, "Okay." Some 20 minutes later I got out the bath, admittedly feeling a bit better but still a little fragile. Wrapping a large towel around myself I went back to the kitchen. Aunt had prepared some roast chicken and mash. She beckoned me to sit. She joined me and we ate in silence. A few minutes after we'd both finished, I looked across the table to her and asked, "Where's my clothes? I should get dressed." She held my gaze and said, "I thought you might like to wear something different." I knew what was coming. "I don't want to wear a dress, Aunt." "Oh, come on, John. It's just us, and you did say girls your age wear shorter skirts. I'd like to see you wearing one." I could feel a heavy weariness come over me. I just couldn't be bothered to fight with her. "Okay, let's do this," I said quietly. Up she jumped. "Come into the front bedroom when you're ready." I waited a couple of minutes, rose from the table and followed my aunt to the bedroom, resigned to spending the next couple of hours in a dress. Sure enough, laid out on the bed, was a complete outfit of underwear, shoes and a short tartan mini skirt and black V-necked jumper. She handed me the high-waisted knickers, a dark blue color. I pulled them up under the towel. Once they were in place I let the towel fall to the ground. Inside I was dying. Here I was once again being dressed as a girl, only this time the clothes were right for my age. Aunt passed the matching bra. I struggled with fastening it behind my back until Auntie stood and did it for me. "You can't wear stockings with such a short skirt, so it will be tights today." She produced an unopened pack of sheer black tights. She showed me how to bunch them up ready to slip onto my feet and up my legs. Pulling them up my legs was at the same time restrictive and quite sensual. I found myself thinking there's nothing quite like the feeling of legs encased in nylon. Next she handed me the top. I pulled it over my head and put my arms through the sleeves, pulling it down. "Wait a minute," Aunt said. She lifted the jumper up, revealing my bra. I felt something cold being pushed into the bra cups, and then she pulled the jumper down again, holding the skirt for me to step into. I was indeed short, only reaching the top of my thighs. I was showing a really lot of leg. She placed a belt around my waist and pointed to a pair of lower-heeled Mary Jane shoes. Once they were on, she had me sit in front of her dresser, slapping me on the legs as I sat in typical boy fashion, knees together, young girl. I quickly drew them together. She had me apply a soft pink lipstick and a very pale blue eyeshadow. "You've got such good skin, you don't need any foundation." Once she was finished with my makeup she had me come back into the living room, where I sat down on the sofa in the most unladylike fashion I could, which got me another slap across my legs. "Stand up and sit down properly this time, smooth your skirt under yourself and keep your knees together." I followed her instructions, this time sitting down as she directed. That's better, and she switched on the TV. We sat like this for maybe a couple of hours while Aunt Margaret read the Sunday papers. I'd absent-mindedly crossed my legs as it was easier than concentrating on keeping my knees together. Unexpectedly, Aunt stood up and left the room. I was about to follow her when I caught the first look of myself in the large mirror. I was looking at myself when Auntie returned. There was that smile again. "See, you look nice." "I guess so," was my reluctant reply. Then I noticed she was wearing a coat and was holding out a jacket for me. "Come on, I'll take you to the pictures. We can go see the James Bond film, Live and Let Die with Roger Moore." I felt myself sigh inwardly, even though I did want to see it, as I reached out for the short jacket. "Hurry up, we'll need to get a move on if we are to catch the bus into town." With that, she was heading to the front door. As I walked behind her, reaching the open air, I quickly became aware of just what it feels like to have your legs so exposed to the elements on a cool summer early evening. We walked up the short hill and waited at the bus stop for the bus into town. After a few minutes, a few more people joined us at the stop. I was wishing the bus would arrive quickly as I felt a couple of the older men looking at my legs. I was feeling exposed, so stood close to my aunt so no one would feel like approaching me. Soon enough, the bus arrived and we were heading into Newcastle. We'd be going to the 6:30 p.m. showing at the Isoldo at the bottom of the West Road. There was already a queue, which we joined and patiently waited. It didn't take long for us to be in the foyer. Aunt bought me a Kiora orange and some chocolates, and we took our seats. I ended up sitting next to a guy, probably in his early 20s. I swear he spent more time looking at my legs than he did at the screen, even though he was clearly there with his girlfriend. The 2 hours of the movie passed quickly, and soon we were waiting for the bus back. Getting off on Adelaide Terrace, Auntie headed straight to a pub, the Benwell, and pulled me inside. She ordered herself a gin and tonic and a Coke for me and headed to a small table to sit down. Pretty soon several of the other customers approached her. "Where's Arnold? Who's this?" So Aunt explained my uncle was away attending an engineering course and I was introduced as her niece. My still sore head just said, "Trapped. There's nothing you can do, just get it over with." A short while after arriving, a guy around my aunt's age joined us. Once again my aunt explained I was her niece and they fell into a conversation. I was getting bored and asked Aunt if I could get some crisps and another Coke. Fully expecting her to go to the bar and get them, I was surprised when she pushed a 10-shilling note into my hand and said, "You go get them." I sat there for a minute thinking what to do, when it came to me. If she wants me to be a girl, then I'll be one. I stood up, making sure people noticed me, and walked the short distance to the bar, swaying my hips as provocatively as I could. When I got the bar, I balanced on one leg, raising my other almost up to my bottom, then placed it down again, crossing my legs at my ankles. When my drink and crisps arrived, I turned around, smiled to the whole room, and went back to sit with my aunt. Nothing was said. My aunt and her companion were still deep in conversation when her friend rose and said, "I'll be back later." It was then my aunt turned to me. "You have no idea the trouble you've caused, young lady, walking in a public bar like that. Now you'll deal with the consequences of flaunting yourself like that." I was taken aback. All I'd done was sway my hips and smile at the room. I was about to protest my innocence when the guy she'd been chatting with returned, this time with a lanky youth in tow who he introduced as his son Mark, and they both sat down, one either side of me. As soon as his father and my aunt resumed their conversation, Mark turned to me and started asking about me. I began to concoct a story: which school I attended, Wassa Jess. What music did I like, T-Rex and David Bowie. Did I get out much? Yes, I'd been to the Mayfair a couple of times, and so it went on. I felt like I was inventing a whole new life story, although the bit about the Mayfair was true. By 1973 I was listening to Pink Floyd, Hawkwind and Deep Purple alongside the Bowie and T-Rex. I didn't really notice the bar filling up as I endured Mark's questioning and attempts at small talk. Being a Sunday, last orders was called around 10 p.m. and people started drinking up and emptying onto the streets. Mark and I dutifully followed my aunt and his father out. They seemed in no hurry to end the conversation, so we just stood there, waiting. You look cold, Mark said. I am here. Pull this around you as he offered me his jacket. No, I couldn't as I pushed it away. Then let me warm you, and before I could respond he put his arms around me and pulled me close to his chest. It was, I admit, warmer, but this was so wrong. If he realized I wasn't a girl, I was likely to get well and truly beaten up. Just then I caught my aunt looking over. Was that concern in her eyes? She seemed to quickly bring her conversation with Mark's father to an end and came over to where we stood. Mark still held on to me. Let's go, Joanna, she said firmly, and I tried to pull away from Mark. I'd like to see you again, maybe one Friday at the Mayfair. Okay, I'm going next week to see the sensational Alex Harvey band. I could get you a ticket in a flash. I remembered next Friday I have to attend a party with Chris, so I made a quick excuse. He did actually look a little disappointed, and I felt just a twinge of guilt. All right, maybe another time. He released me, but planted a kiss on my pink lips. In my surprise, I didn't pull back and our lips stayed locked together. It was only my aunt's tap on my shoulder that broke the kiss. I stepped back and Mark just smiled. With a tug on my arm, Aunt and I were walking back to her house. Well, you've made an admirer and Mark comes from a good family. You could do worse than going out with him without really think. I said, yeah, he's really nice. What the voice in my head went, what did you just say? You're not a girl. Get a grip, John, you can't go out with Mark. My thoughts were broken as we climbed the steps to my aunt's front door. Once inside, my aunt made us both a cuppa and, stating the obvious, said I'd need to stay the night and I'd need something to wear. As I sat holding the warming cup of tea, she returned with what was possibly the flimsiest nightie in existence. A deep red color that just screamed sex. Luckily, she also handed me a housecoat to wear over it. So wearing the sexy night dress, I climbed into bed in her spare room. Sleep followed almost immediately. Rising late on the Monday morning, I wandered into the kitchen. Imagine my shock and horror to see Mark sitting there talking to my aunt. He looked across to me and I quickly pulled my housecoat around me, pretty sure he'd caught a sight of the nightie. What you doing here? I stammered. I thought you might like to hang out around town today, he said. Monday was about to get a lot more complicated. My aunt offered me a cup of tea and Mark simply waited. I can't go out with you today, Mark. I've things to do with my aunt. Oh yes, said my aunt. Joanna and I are going shopping in town. Then looking me dead in the eye, you best get dressed. My heart sank. She wants me dressed as Joanna again. I gave her my coldest stare. Hurry along now, sweetie, we've got a lot to get through. I left the table and went back to the spare bedroom. There were the clothes of the evening before. Reluctantly, I picked them up and started dressing. I was about to pull up the tights when Aunt appeared. Oh, good, you're almost dressed. Put these tights on instead of the black ones, they're better for daytime wear. She pushed an unopened pack of nude tights to me. I opened them carefully before sliding them up my legs and stepping into the white court shoes. Well, here we go again, I thought to myself, and I headed back to the kitchen. Mark was still there. He smiled when I entered the room. I'll see you later, Joanna. And with that he upped and headed off. I turned to my aunt. What did he mean by that? Oh, he's going to meet us in town after lunch. Come on, get some makeup on and we'll get going. Get going? What do you mean? You're not making me go to town dressed like this. Yes, I am. You're all dressed now. You just need a touch lipstick and we'll head off. You can't keep wearing the same skirt all the time. I don't want another skirt. Oh, stop being so dramatic. We're going and that's it. With that, she offered me a short jacket and shoulder bag. I put it on without really thinking about it. All the time the voice in my head was screaming, this has to stop. With a gentle push in the small of my back, I was at the top of the stairs leading to my aunt's front door. Another gentle push and I was heading down the stairs. Aunt opened the door and in flooded the light of day. A couple of steps later I was outside, and unlike the evening before, people were out on the street going about their daily business. My aunt was already halfway down the garden path when she turned and beckoned me to move along. My feet moved forward, the click of the heels propelling me down the same path. In a matter of minutes we were waiting for the bus to head into Newcastle. It was going to be another day shopping with my aunt, only this time I'd be wearing a mini skirt and heels. The shopping trip was all something of a blur. It made me select another 2 skirts, a denim mini and a knee-length cream skirt with red flowers, a couple of tops, a red and a black one, and 2 pairs of shoes, one pair black, the other red. Then came the visit, back to the lingerie in Fenwick's. "You'll need a couple of sets," Aunt said. "Why?" was my plain response. Then she leant in close, so only I could hear, "Because girls have pretty lingerie and I want my niece to be pretty as well." "But I'm not your niece, I'm Jay." Before I could finish, she'd grabbed my arm. "You're my niece now and you'll do as I say or there will be consequences to you being." And she smiled. Naughty. With that, Aunt was off again inspecting the lingerie. Pretty soon I gave my head taking an armful of items to the checkout. "We'd best get a move on, Mark will be waiting." Oh shit, I'd completely forgot that Mark was meant to meet us around lunchtime. Carrying several shopping bags we headed up to the Haymarket area of Newcastle, aiming to have a bite to eat in Mark Tony's. As soon as we climbed the few steps to enter, there was Mark, grinning from ear to ear. I caught a quick sight of myself as I walked past the mirrored wall, short mini, decent legs, heels not bad looking, even if I say so myself. No wonder he's grinning. I gave my head a shake. Aunt was leading us to a table. We sat in a booth and Mark squeezed in on the same side as me. Aunt took our orders. I opted for a French salad sandwich and a Coke. As soon as Aunt rose to go place our order, Mark turned to me and complimented me on my legs and choice of mini, and just to emphasize how short it was he placed his hand on my leg. "You look lovely in a mini." I couldn't think what to do or say, so simply mumbled, "Thanks." "Are you going to come to the Mayfair on Friday?" No, I can't this Friday. Or any other Friday was the thought in my head. "Aw, why not? I'd love to take you out." "You can't, Mark. Sorry, you just can't." Before he could ask again, my aunt turned up with the food. "What you two talking about?" Quickly I said, "Mark's asked me out on Friday and I said I can't." The emphasis on the word can't. Inside I was silently pleading, "Help me out here, Auntie, put an end to this." Then Auntie spoke up, "I'm sorry Mark, Joanna is right, she can't go out with you, not this Friday, or any other Friday come to that." Mark looked confused. "But why not? I thought you said I could join you because you were okay with Joanna going out with me." "Well, Mark, Joanna isn't exactly the girl you think she is." Oh my God, I thought, she's going to say I'm not a girl. "You see, Joanna is just here for a few more days and then she's heading back to her parents." I let out a silent sigh of relief. "Where she'll go back to being the boy. Oops, I mean tomboy. She usually is." I coughed on my Coke. Did I hear that right? Mark turned to me and said, "Oh, that's a shame. I would really like to get to know you, maybe when you're feeling not so boyish." He laughed at his own little joke. "I'm heading off to uni in a few weeks anyway, so we'd probably not see each other for a good while." Then he remembered to take his hand from my leg. He stood up and said his goodbyes and walked out onto Newcastle streets. I glared at my aunt, who innocently said, "What now?" "You won't hear from him again, so I've sorted your boyfriend problem." She was desperately trying to stifle a chuckle. "Oh, Joanna, you have so much to learn about being a pretty young girl. He won't be the only boy who takes a fancy to you, but I'll help you. In time, believe me, you'll become a beautiful woman." I looked down at the table. Like that's going to happen, I thought. Aunt gathered up the bags and announced it was time to head home and catch the bus back. Once back at my aunt's, she had me try on all the clothes and lingerie, including the black set with a matching suspender belt and stockings. After I'd tried on everything, I was back in the mini skirt when I just broke down in tears. "Oh, come on, Joanna, it's not that bad." Yes, Yes, it is. What is it? You know, I told you Chris had saw me that first time, while his mom saw me too, and she wants me to go to a going away party with Chris, or she's going to tell mom and dad I've been dressing as a girl. When's the party? This Friday. Dad would kill me if he found out I'm dressed like this, as I dramatically waved my hands across my body. Don't you worry, Joanna, your father will never find out. We just need to get you through this party on Friday, and soon after your mom and dad will be back from holiday, and we can make sure no one else sees Joanna. So you think I should go to this party? Yes, once you do, Chris's mom, Mrs. Walton, isn't it, won't be able to blackmail you like this, and anyway, isn't Chris leaving for university as well? He is, yes, and pretty soon, I think. All right, well, it's just as well we've got you some new clothes. We can't have you going to a party wearing the same old clothing. And my aunt smiled. Inside I was thinking, great, all I have to do is get through this party and then this whole episode is over and I can forget it all. Come here on Friday, I'll help you get dressed for the party. Afterwards you can come visit me and tell me all about it. At this point I stood up and gave my aunt a hug. Oh, thank you, Aunt Margaret. Thank you for helping me. It's my pleasure, sweetie. Now you best get changed and head home. Your uncle is due home tonight, and if we want to prevent people from seeing the lovely Joanna, we best start now. I took myself off to the spare bedroom, quickly removed the clothes and got back into my jeans and t-shirt. There's my cute wee tomboy. I'll see you on Friday around 2 p.m. And I waved goodbye and started the walk back home. It was only after I'd gone around halfway home when it dawned on me I was now committed to going to party with Chris, and my aunt was helping me get ready for it. A surge of anger flowed through me. It's her bloody fault I'm in this mess, and just why does she now have a wardrobe of clothes for a girl? I'm not a girl. A person my age safely packed away. This was so screwed up I just needed it to end. Luckily, the next 3 days passed without any incident. Waking up on Friday morning I felt sick to my core, but I knew this is where it ends. Around 1 p.m. I began to head down to Aunt Margaret's ready to endure getting dressed for the party. As soon as I arrived my aunt had me change into some of the clothing she bought me earlier in the week, a simply mini skirt and top, tights and low heels. She tossed a short jacket over to me I put on while asking, "Where are we going?" "You'll see," came the reply. "I think you'll enjoy this." I'd become so used to being outside dressed as a girl, I no longer thought about it, just another humiliation of being Joanna. My aunt walked me up onto the terrace around the shops. I could see we were heading to a beauty salon. I stopped just before we reached the entrance. "Do I really have to do this, Aunt? Please just let me go to H party dressed as I am." "Oh no," came the reply. "Who knows when I'll get a chance like this again. You, my darling niece, are going to look beautiful this evening." With that I was ushered in. "Hey Margaret, I suppose this is your niece," came from an older lady I assumed was the owner. "Yes, and she's ready to get all dolled up for tonight's party." Inside, part of me died. I was taken to a salon chair. "We'll start with a rinse of that hair." And before any words escaped me my hair was being liberally doused in water and shampoo. Once done, the owner and my aunt examined me like some specimen they were about to conduct an evil experiment on. Suddenly the owner exclaimed loudly, "Right, that's decided, let's get to work, but before we start, young lady, I need you to remove your tights." I rolled them down my legs, all thought of protest gone from within me. I just wanted this to be over. Then the chat started. "Is it your boyfriend who's taking you to the party? Have you decided what to wear? Ooh, he'll find you irresistible you by the time we're finished. Will you be wearing heels? Do you prefer tights or are you an old-fashioned type of girl and wear stockings? Boys like a girl in stockings, don't they?" And so it went on and on. It was obvious I was being given the works. I looked down, my toenails were a deep red color and my fingernails matched. Then came the styling of my hair, Pretty soon my hair was a nest of curlers and I was wheeled under a weird dome, covering my head. Just few minutes, my pretty. Wheeled back out, I tried to see what had been done, but I was wheeled to a station where the mirror was covered over. Then, there was the owner hovering over me. The curler were removed, followed by a quick snip here and there. I watched in dismay as whole chunks of my hair fell to the floor. She looked over at the clock on the wall. "Oh, we best get a move on, your aunt will be back soon." It was only then I realized she'd left me in the salon owner's hands. "Lean back, sweetie." And I was tilted back in the chair. "Let's get these eyebrows matching your lovely hair." Before I could even begin to protest, she was working away, tweezing and tweaking my brows. "You have lovely eyelashes, we won't need to do much there." As she stood back admiring her work. Next came a cream, applied over my face, then powders and brushes and more creams. "Close your eyes." I felt the soft touch of brush on my eyelids. "Oh God, I'll look like a clown," I thought. Then I heard the salon door open and in came my aunt. She came straight over. "I'll be done in a moment, she just needs her lips done. Pucker up, sweetie," said the salon owner. I did as I was told and soon felt the soft, velvet touch of lipstick being applied. "Press your lips on this tissue." When it was taken from me, I could clearly see the imprint of my lips. "Oh, Joanna, you look just beautiful," came from my aunt. It was only then I noticed she was carrying a couple of large bags. "Can I take her to the staff room and get her dressed?" asked my aunt. "It's through here," said the owner. I never did find out her name, and we were led into a room at the back of the salon. "I want to see what you've had done to me." I looked around the room, but couldn't spot a mirror anywhere. "All in good time, Joanna, let's get you dressed now. Take off what you're wearing." I stepped out of the mini skirt and took off my top. Quickly I was down to my panties. My aunt opened up one of the bags she'd brought. It was the black lacy bra she'd bought at Fenwick's. Aunt helped me to get it on, then came the suspender belt, fitting quite tightly roundly waist. Then it was time to swap the panties for the black lacy ones my aunt was holding out to me, but first there was something new to put on. A really tight pouch. Once my penis was safely inside, my aunt gave a quick tug, pulling them tight to me. "Don't worry, I'm not peeking." Quickly, I pulled up the black lacy panties. When I looked down, there was no sign that I'd ever had a penis. "I'm ready," I said, and my aunt turned round. "You're not ready yet, but it's a good start." And she smiled. Fishing in one of the bags, she produced 2 pink jelly-like mounds. "I bought these today from a specialist shop in town. You need to be careful with them, but for tonight they are ideal." She sprayed something on them, then came close to me, put one of each mound in my bra cups and held them firmly to my chest. After a few minutes she took her hands away and there was a sudden tug of extra weight on my chest. "They'll stay in place now, don't look so worried. I have remover for them as well." My hands involuntarily went to my bra cups. "Dear God, I've got tits," was all I could think. Then with a dramatic flourish, aunt revealed the dress I'd be wearing, a deep blue, sleeveless velvet dress. "Step into it," she said, holding it in front of me. First one foot then the other, then aunt was pulling it up my body, sliding my arms through the 2 holes that were where the sleeves should be. The dress ended 3 or 4 inches above my knees, not as short as the mini I'd been wearing but short enough to flash a lot of leg. "Right, let's put the finishing touches to your outfit for tonight." Aunt handed me a simple silver pendant necklace, 3 costume rings and a pair of hooped clip-on earrings. Then came the stockings, Aristoc sheer black seamed ones. She had me thread the suspenders under my panties and then she slowly rolled the stockings up my legs, continuously checking the back of my legs to make sure the seam was straight. The 6 suspenders were attached and I became totally aware of the tug on them as I moved my legs. Then came the shoes, 4-inch heels, with a delicate ankle strap. My aunt sat me down and put on the first shoe. You won't be kicking these off anytime soon. Let's see you stand. I rose from the seat, unsteady at first, but quickly got used to the slightly different center of balance now I had tits, and wearing heels isn't really that difficult, or at least it wasn't for me so soon after putting them on. I noticed my aunt had a short jacket and purse to hand. For me, I rightly guessed. All right, Joanna, time for your big reveal. And she reached for my hand. She guided me back into the salon. Sitting towards the door was the owner. She turned and gave me a big smile. Your boyfriend tonight is going to find you irresistible, Joanna. You look classy and just sexy enough to keep the boys interested. And she let out a soft chuckle. She came and stood beside me. With my aunt at my other side, I was guided to a full-length mirror for my first look at myself. My hand went straight to my mouth. The girl looking back at me wasn't me. All trace of the male me was gone. My hair had highlights and framed my face in a sea of delicate curls, hanging like some 40s movie star over my left eye. My lips were red and my eyes seemed to pop from my face, they were so dramatic. The dress clung to my slight frame and what curves I had. But my legs positively glowed in the shop's half-light, a lustrous sheen encasing them, begging to be touched. I turned on the heels. The seams were arrow straight. The shop owner had left us. I turned to my aunt. I hope you're happy, Auntie. Look what you've done to me. I noticed my eyebrows tweaked into a thin arch. Look at me. You've made me a girl and I'm not a girl. I was just going to go to the party with Chris and hide in the background. How can I hide looking like this? Why have you done this to me? My aunt came towards me. I took a step away, but she reached out and pulled me close, hugging me. I've wanted to see you dressed like this ever since you were born, John. My aunt sat down. You see, your mom lost a daughter before you were born and now she has 3 sons. While I'd always imagined her oldest to be my niece and for a short time, you can be. I stood dumbfounded. My mom lost a baby, lost a daughter, before I was born. How? Why? The questions tumbled out of me. My aunt just said, next time you come visit, I promise I'll tell you everything. My aunt pointed to the clock on the wall. It was 6:30 p.m. We best get you home and ready for Chris to take you to the party. Aunt paid the salon owner and we made our way out. She took me to a taxi company and made sure I got taxi back home. Just before I got in, she pulled me close and kissed me on the cheek. Try to enjoy tonight, Joanna, and tell me all about it. I slipped into the taxi and very quickly I was opening my front door and getting ready for Chris to call round. All I could think about though was that I might have had a sister if Mom hadn't lost the baby. My mind was definitely anywhere but on attending a party against my will. In fact, I felt completely numb. I was brought back to reality by the incessant ringing of the front doorbell. I looked at myself in the mirror in our hallway, thinking ruefully to myself, well, there's no mistaking me for a boy tonight. I just need to get the next few hours over and Aunt can explain everything to me and I can get back to my life. Chris better behave himself. I pulled on my jacket, grabbed my handbag and purse and opened the door. Chris stood there in a dark suit. His eyes roamed over my body, from the tip of my shoes to the last hair on my head. Well, say something, Chris. Yo. You look amazing. I smiled and stepped out once more. Chris took my hand. I let him hold it. My mind was still trying to focus on what was happening right now, but all I could think was, my mom lost a daughter. We walked along the street towards Chris's mom, who was waiting by her car. At least I won't have to walk in these heels. My earlier confidence gradually evaporating. Chris and I sat in the rear seats all the while Mrs. Walton was speaking. All the while in my head I was thinking, my aunt dressed me like this because my mom lost a baby. It only took about 5 minutes to get to our destination and I can't remember a word of what was said apart from being told we'd be walking back. Like me, Chris went to an all-boys school, so it was no surprise to find the boys outnumbered the girls by about 10-1. With me on his arm, Chris was initially a very popular person, but pretty quickly the initial attention faded away and it became obvious that Chris was or had been a bit of a loner at his school. We'd been at the party almost 2 hours, and for the past 90 minutes no one had come over to talk to Chris or I. There were small groups of people dotted around the building, and I realized Chris and I were standing alone and had moved back away from the dance floor where the DJ was belting out the glam rock and disco classics of the day. I turned to face Chris. "You don't want to be here, do you? You seem alone here, well apart from me, that is." Chris looked down to me, even with 4-inch heels, which were now beginning to cause my feet to ache. He was a good 2 or 3 inches taller than me. "No," he said, "it was all my mom's idea. She knows I've hated this school and can't wait to get to uni, but when she saw you dressed she thought with you by my side, they'd always remember the girl I was with, and you do look amazing, Joanna. So your mom had me do this because she knew there wouldn't be many girls here and you'd be noticed because you came with a girl." Well, yes, I guess so. I couldn't help thinking, seems everyone has a motive for doing this to me. "You know what, Chris, your mom's plan isn't going to work if we stay here, away from the dance floor. The night will be over soon. Come on, let's dance." Now I don't know where this bravado had come from. I mean, I'd never danced in heels, but something about Kai's having hated his time at school made me want to let people see me with him and in some way change that. I took Chris's hand and led him back to the dance floor just in time for the J to play Get It On by T.Rex, followed by Rock the Boat. Definitely a couple of up-tempo numbers, but I was beginning to enjoy the dancing. Soon enough my arms were in the air and I was swaying with the music, Chris doing his very best to keep in step with me. On came Ballroom Blitz. I was actually starting to have some fun. Then I heard the DJ say, "Time to slow it down now as it's almost time to go." On came You Make Me Feel Brand New by the Stylistics and Chris, and I slowed our movements down. By the time the DJ played the final record, Angie by the Rolling Stones, my arms were around Chris's neck, his hands were holding my hips, and we swayed ever so closer. I felt him pull me towards him and I looked up to see him gazing down on me. He moved his face closer and then our lips touched. Chris was kissing me. I felt his tongue reach out and without thinking I closed my eyes and let my lips part. His tongue didn't need a second invitation and I found myself in a passionate embrace on the dance floor. I could even feel his dick against my thigh. My head was spinning. It was simultaneously the grossest thing I'd ever done and at the same time strangely comforting and pleasant. I even found myself wondering what his dick would feel like if I touched it. As that thought left my head, it broke the spell. No way am I touching his dick. And I broke the kiss just as the song ended. I made an excuse saying I'd need to redo my lipstick and quickly walked to the toilets. Once I was inside, the few girls who were there inundated me with questions. How long had I known Chris? Was he a good kisser? Like I'd know. But you know what, I wasn't going to spoil Chris's moment, so I did my very best to gush glowingly about what a wonderful guy he was and how I'd really miss him when he goes to uni. I fixed my lipstick, went back to Chris and immediately linked arms with him. "As far as tonight goes, Chris, everyone is going to think you got lucky," I thought to myself. I kissed him on the cheek, waved our goodbyes and headed out into the night air to start the short walk home. After a few yards, Chris stopped and turned to me. "Sorry about kissing you, I just forgot, you know." "It's all right, Chris, remember I kissed you back." "I enjoyed kissing you, you know you've got great legs." "You think?" I don't know what came over me, but I gave him a quick stocking top flash. "Oh geez, Joanna, any boy would love to have a girl like you." "A girl like me?" "You know what I mean," and with that he took my hand and we walked off into the night.